The room was sealed, windows shut, door locked, no carbon monoxide, no intruder, no struggle, just a 59-year-old man, dead in his bed, and the only sound was the quiet hum of the electric fan, still spinning directly at his face. The coroner's report listed it as cardiac arrest, but his family knew something the official report didn't acknowledge. He was healthy, he had no history of heart problems, and the fan had been on all night. What actually killed him? The South Korean government says they know exactly what happened, and they've been warning their citizens about it for decades, but the truth they're hiding is far stranger than the myth they created. This wasn't an isolated incident. Between 2003 and 2005 alone, South Korea recorded 20 confirmed deaths from people sleeping with electric fans in closed rooms, and those are just the ones they officially acknowledged. But here's where it gets terrifying. Every single fan sold in South Korea comes with a built-in timer, specifically designed to shut off automatically before it can kill you. Major newspapers regularly report death by electric fan as a legitimate cause of overnight death. The Korea Consumer Protection Board, a government-funded agency, officially warned citizens that fans could cause asphyxiation, water loss, and hypothermia, and yet, outside of Korea, the entire concept is treated as an absurd joke. So which is it? Is the world's most common household appliance actually a silent killer? Or is an entire nation suffering from a delusion that has persisted for nearly a century? That depends entirely on who you ask. And when you ask them, what you're about to hear has been buried under decades of conflicting reports, cultural denial, and one of the strangest cover-ups in modern history. If you follow deep dive breakdowns that go where mainstream media won't, subscribe now. Because the full picture is far darker than the headlines ever revealed. The story begins in 1920s Korea. Electric fans were new technology, expensive, luxurious, and almost immediately terrifying. Early newspaper articles warned of strange harms from electric fans, people suffering nausea, facial paralysis, and in some cases, sudden death after sleeping with the devices running. By the 1930s, the belief was already spreading like wildfire. A fan left on in a closed room could kill you. But here's the question no one was asking. Why did this belief take hold so quickly? One theory is almost too convenient. In the 1970s, South Korea was in the middle of a devastating energy crisis. Oil prices had skyrocketed. The government needed citizens to reduce electricity consumption, especially during the scorching summer months when fans were running non-stop, so they created the perfect propaganda tool. If people were genuinely terrified of dying from a fan, they'd be far more careful about using them. They'd set timers, open windows, turn them off at night. But there's a problem with this theory. The myth is older than the energy crisis, decades older. In fact, the earliest known article warning about fan deaths dates back to 1927, nearly 50 years before the government supposedly invented the story. So if the government didn't create the myth, who did? The answer is far more unsettling than a government conspiracy. The fan death myth originated from a very real, very terrifying fear. Suffocation. The logic seemed sound. You're sleeping in a sealed room. The fan is constantly circulating the same air. Eventually, you'd breathe all the oxygen out of the room, replaced by deadly carbon dioxide, and you'd simply stop breathing. It made sense. It was logical, and it was completely wrong. A fan's blades move at about 8 meters per second maximum, a gentle breeze, not a suffocating force. To actually die from oxygen depletion in a room, you'd need to be in a completely sealed container, and even then it takes about 7 hours. But here's what nobody noticed at the time. The theory shifted. By the 1980s, the suffocation explanation had quietly evolved. Now the danger wasn't about oxygen at all. It was about temperature, hypothermia. That was the new killer. The theory claimed that a fan running all night would lower your body temperature gradually, slowly, and silently, until your core temperature dropped below 35 degrees C. At 28 degrees C, your heart would simply stop. It sounded plausible. After all, fans cool you through evaporation. The air movement speeds up moisture evaporation from your skin, which draws heat away from your body. But that wasn't the real reason. Professor Yoon-seong Lee of Seoul National University's Institute of Forensic Medicine called the entire concept, and I quote, utter nonsense. Here's why. If fans could cause hypothermia by cooling your body too much, then outdoor winds, which move much faster than any fan, would be killing people constantly. But they don't. And more importantly, the human body has a survival instinct that is almost impossible to override. When your body temperature starts dropping, your blood vessels constrict. You shiver, you instinctively pull blankets over yourself. Your body actively fights to stay warm unless you're unconscious or immobile or severely intoxicated, and that's where the truth gets dark. The people who actually died with fans running in their rooms, almost all of them had something in common. They were heavily intoxicated, they had pre-existing medical conditions, or they were elderly, their bodies too frail to regulate temperature effectively. The fan wasn't the killer. It was just the only thing left in the room, but the belief had already done its damage. And when the government officially warned citizens about the dangers of fan death in 2006, it cemented the myth into the national consciousness. What happened next is the most disturbing part of the entire story. The Korea Consumer Protection Board published its official safety alert. It warned that if bodies are exposed to fans or air conditioners for too long, it causes the body to lose water and suffer hypothermia. And then it listed the most dangerous risk of all, death from increased carbon dioxide saturation and decreased oxygen concentration. In other words, the government officially endorsed the suffocation theory, a theory that had been scientifically debunked for decades. And the government agency didn't stop there. It recommended that every Korean citizen set timers on their fans, rotate wind direction, and most importantly, leave doors open. But here's the part they didn't tell you: an open door wouldn't save you from suffocation. You don't need an open door for oxygen. The air in a room can sustain you for hours, days, even because rooms aren't hermetically sealed. And then a researcher named Larry Kalkstein from the University of Miami was quoted in a Korean newspaper. His comments appeared to lend scientific legitimacy to the myth, except it was a misunderstanding, a translation error. He never endorsed the theory. But by the time the correction was published, the damage was done. The myth had been given a second life. And it still hasn't died, so why does this belief persist? Philip Hiscock, a researcher interviewed by The Star, suggested something fascinating. In many cultures, unexplained deaths need explanations. If an alcoholic dies in his sleep, the family might not want to face the truth. They don't want the stigma, they don't want the shame, but fan death offers a solution, a convenient explanation. A way to grieve without judgment, and for the younger generation, the belief is fading. A decade of internet skepticism has taken its toll. A recent survey suggested that Koreans in their 20s and 30s are far less likely to believe in fan death than their parents, and yet, the fans still have timers. The government warnings are still online. And every summer, Korean news outlets still report cases of fan death, even if the more likely causes are obvious. So who's really to blame? The government that exploited a superstition for energy conservation, the media that sensationalized deaths without scientific verification, the culture that turned a fear into a tradition, or the people who chose to believe not because they didn't know the truth but because the truth was too uncomfortable to accept? Here's the reality. In 2013, a television news broadcast did a simple test. They sealed a room, turned on a fan, and measured the oxygen levels. It remained constant at 20%, no change. No suffocation, no death. In the same year, a researcher exposed a test subject to a fan continuously for hours. Their body temperature didn't drop, their heart didn't stop, they survived without incident. And yet, the belief continues, because fan death was never really about fans, it was about control, it was about fear. It was about the human need to explain the unexplainable. Even when the explanation is worse than the mystery itself, the fan in your room, it's not going to kill you, but the belief that it could. That belief has killed something else entirely. It killed the truth. Today, millions of people still set timers on their fans, still leave doors open, still wake up in the middle of the night to turn them off, not because they have to, but because they were told to, because their parents told them. And their grandparents told them. And somewhere along the line, the government gave it official approval. The myth survived because we wanted it to survive, because sometimes the real danger isn't the fan spinning in the corner of your room, it's the silence of those who know the truth and choose to say nothing. So the next time you hear someone say, "Don't sleep with the fan on, it'll kill you," remember that story. The 59-year-old man, the sealed room, the fan spinning at his face. And then ask yourself the question that still hasn't been answered: what really killed him, and why are we so afraid to find out?